What is going on, guys? In today's video, we are going to be checking out Agnews Developmental Center, what's left of it, or what it was previously known as Agnews Insane Asylum. And it was built as part of like an initiative in California and the United States as a whole in the 1800s to build these centers to kind of handle, process, and like take care of people with, developmental disabilities and like mental illness as well too. So currently there is a West Campus and an East Campus. The West Campus is currently privately owned by Oracle, kind of crazy, but thankfully, some of the buildings were able to be preserved because it was privately bought. And then there's a East Campus as well too that is currently, I think, like under a plan to be like demolished and replaced with, office buildings and stuff like that. I think part of it was already demolished to build like a school. The main building of the East Campus still exists. It's all gated around, so you can't get super close, but we're gonna see how close we can get, take some video and go over the history. So let's go. All right, guys, we've made it. So where I'm standing is at the train station for Agnews that was built in the 1800s. Pretty cool, it's still here. I think a lot of effort went into kind of like preserving it. But back when Agnews, which is right over there, can't really see with all the trees, was established, this was actually a stop along the, I'm not quite sure which railroad it was. It might have been the South Pacific Railroad, the one that went like through Los Gatos and whatnot. I'm not 100% sure. Patients from like San Francisco, like wherever, like in the Bay Area, would have been like dropped off here and then delivered to Agnews. This is a pretty cool piece of history that's still standing. You can see it's kind of like sinking a little bit. It actually doesn't look like it has like a proper kind of like concrete foundation underneath. It looks kind of original in that sense that it's kind of like sinking. But Agnews as a whole was actually like a little community. In addition to the center over here that was built, there was actually, if you look at old topo maps, there's a little neighborhood right here as well called Agnews. And I'm assuming maybe like a lot of workers lived here because there's like a whole bunch of like little super old cottages. So I'm assuming that and you can see like on the map as well too, there's like a kind of like a little community with like I don't know, you call it like a subdivision or something like that, had like a whole bunch of like little houses, and you can see like a lot of these look very old, like late 1800s. All right, so now we are on the grounds of Agnews, or what was formerly known as Agnews Developmental Center or Agnews State Asylum. It was built in the, I think it was like 1889 when it was established. And it was originally a Kirkbride plan, which I will add a picture of for reference. It's like it's like this massive structure with kind of like a central building and then like wings out to the side. And I think the concept was to have like a lot of space for like light, which, was considered like rehabilitate, I guess, aid in rehabilitating people with, developmental disabilities, and then also mental illness. So I believe Agnews was the third asylum that was built in California in the 1800s. There's like a whole bunch. I made one already on the Sonoma, what was it called, the Sonoma State Hospital, something like that. There's another, it was a while ago, but that facility is really cool because nothing's really been done to it since it closed down, so it's kind of like very original still. However, Agnews was the third one that was built, and then before that in the Bay Area, I think there was only like one kind of like asylum, I guess, like in San Francisco. It's called like the Maritime Hospital. So it was like a hospital for like sailors, but then also they like threw like a lot of like mentally ill people in there as well too. Can you imagine you're like sailing across the world and you land in San Francisco, you have scurvy, you're like sleep deprived, everything like that. I feel like a lot of people would probably be seeming like pretty crazy, I guess. So like a lot of these people would land and get dumped off of these maritime hospitals. You could call it like crazy or something like that. And it's sad because a lot of those people actually would die, and then they would just kind of, bury them without any sort of like marker or anything like that. And that's for a separate video because there is some history linked to that in a cemetery that was like located for the Maritime Hospital. So the California government kind of decided that they needed to build these asylums, and so Agnews was built to kind of serve the South Bay area at the time. So as I mentioned, when it was originally built, Agnews Insane Asylum, it was built with the Kirkbride plan. So it was a massive structure. There are a few pictures, like I said, I'll add some pictures. But what happened is in 1906, there was that San Francisco earthquake, the Great Earthquake they call it, and it absolutely demolished Agnews Insane Asylum. That Kirkbride building was just pretty much gone, decimated, completely collapsed. And I think it led to they say like the largest loss of life in a singular area due to that earthquake. A ton, I'll add the number in here, but a lot of people died. And then another thing that's crazy is like it collapsed, right? And so then I think a lot of the patients just ran free, and like a lot of them like were never found. So it's almost something like out of a movie. Can you imagine that? Like earthquake happens and then the asylum, it's almost like a Batman movie. They all escape and then are wreaking havoc. I don't know if the havoc part happened or whatever. They're all kind of running about, and some of them got away, which is pretty wild. And so it collapsed. They rebuilt it in like a Spanish style architecture that was kind of a little bit more modern, like by like maybe, you know, 15-20 years compared to the previous Kirkbride standard. It was more of a campus style, so there was kind of like a main building, which is right here. You can see it's original still, which is very cool. Or it's been renovated, obviously. I don't know if they call it the clock tower or something like that, but they turned it into this like kind of campus layout instead of the Kirkbride plan. So for a lot of these state asylums, Agnews is quite unique because it was like kind of rebuilt in like a newer standard compared to the other ones, like that video that I made previously where that was a Kirkbride. The wings are gone off of that one, but the main kind of central building is still there. This was completely redone after the earthquake, so it's very unique in that sense. It's very cool to see here a lot of the renovated original structures. I believe there are like a couple here, and then I think that maybe not, maybe that was just kind of like built in the style. There's a couple original ones, including that main building right there. If you look around like on the map from here, it's all like kind of like newer buildings that Oracle has built, and I'll get into a little bit on that later. But in the 1920s, Agnews Insane Asylum, or I don't know if it was called Agnews Developmental Center by that point, but in the 1920s, they actually opened up a east wing, which I'll add in some aerial footage or something like that to kind of like add to their capability of like taking care of. And I don't know quite if like rehabilitation was kind of like a thing back then, but it was more of just kind of like housing people who had developmental disabilities and mental illness. And I think a problem was at that point they didn't really distinguish the difference between like mental illness and developmental disabilities. So it's like anybody who wasn't like neurotypical or whatever had some, if you look at the records from back in the day, people got thrown in for like all sorts of reasons, like people who like ran away from home, people who like immigrated from like Mexico, didn't speak English. You know, I know there's more to it than that, but they would oftentimes just get thrown in here. And back then there weren't really like kind of like laws about getting committed involuntarily. So it's like if they deemed you like unfit kind of function in normal society, they'd throw you in there and then you just stay there pretty much until the system like pushed you out for whatever reason. Here's a nice look right here of the main building, which has been cared for tremendously. Kind of this clock tower kind of thing right here. This is kind of the main structure that is iconic for Agnews and this campus in general. But it's crazy to think like the Kirkbride plan would have been a building like that tall or taller, and then it would have just gone way that way and then like way that way, kind of like these with these wings kind of. So the layout that they developed after that with the campus style is very much a contrast. And in that little kind of like 20 years, I guess not the technology, but the methodology it changed a lot, and treatment style is kind of reflected. Oh, by the way guys, this building that I said looked modern is actually original from the second campus that was built in the early 1900s, this auditorium. So this is original. It's just very well taken care of to the point where it almost looks new, which is awesome. So shout out Oracle for putting the money and taking care of this place. It's very cool. Those windows you can tell are very unique and of that time period. They don't really do stuff like that anymore. So in addition to deinstitutionalization in the 1970s, which already started to kind of put like a decline on the number of people who were being treated here, there was also like a shift in the treatment itself for people with developmental disabilities. So at that point, the idea was to kind of get them in these facilities where they could just have like round-the-clock treatment and all this stuff. But it shifted to wanting to have them be kind of like less isolated away at these places, to integrating them more into communities. So in addition, like, so deinstitutionalization and that shift in like treatment style caused the occupancy to, I don't know if there's a better term for that, to kind of decrease steadily to a point where the West Campus closed in 1998. And then the East Campus was actually open until 2011, and I think that's when the last patient left. And so everything kind of closed shop at that point. And both buildings, campuses, I guess, had different kind of outcomes. So the West Campus was actually purchased by a company called, I think it was Sun Microsystems, in the 1990s under the stipulation that the buildings would have to be preserved. And then I think there was like another like land package where like some property would be converted into housing and stores. And then the East Campus, when it closed, the idea was to just completely demolish it and then kind of use it for a variety of purposes, including like I think a school. A school has actually been built on part of the land that was actually, buildings were demolished and whatnot, so there's a new school there. And then I think they're also trying to do like new housing and stuff like that. But the main building of the East Campus is still there. It's heavily fenced, you can't get in, but you can, I think, catch a little glimpse of it. So we're gonna try to check that out as well too. And so Sun Microsystems did purchase the West Campus that you see here. And it's funny because Oracle actually acquired them, I think, in 2010. So now this whole campus is an Oracle campus. And like I was saying, there are like a few kind of original buildings like this, the auditorium, that building over there. But then like kind of around that, there's a ton of like huge like kind of new buildings that are being used for like office space. And then from what I've heard, Oracle is actually trying to sell like I think like 40% of the property. I don't know if they've done it yet, if it's still happening, or if they're still trying to. And I'm not exactly sure like which buildings as well too they're trying to kind of sell, but that's the current status. I'm kind of like super up close now. It's very cool to see this place in detail up close. It's cool that it's still standing, that they've tried to preserve it. There's a lot of like old kind of touches that you can tell are definitely of that time period. It's not like modern. The fact that there's a fire escape is definitely dates it as well, but very cool to see. And it's insane as well too to think about the old like Kirkbride building that used to be here. There's a picture, like you have this really cool kind of like central view here, but there's a picture from like all the way at the end looking this way of the Kirkbride that was here. And it's just, I can't imagine like how huge and crazy it must have been back in the day, but it had a very short life before the earthquake kind of demolished it. Very cool. Another thought that I just had, it's so interesting, there's so much greenery here. It's pretty wild. This is kind of like a park that not a lot of people are kind of like leveraging. I feel like they kind of have this like open to the public, so I feel like more people should kind of come here and like hang out. It's honestly a very nice, peaceful spot. All right, I just figured out the names of original buildings. So Clock Tower, Auditorium, Administration Building, and then they're just calling this one the Mansion. Like for sure it's related to like their original purposes, but that's kind of, those are kind of like the main original buildings on the campus. But I remember the other one that I looked at was the Sonoma Developmental Center. I think its original name was some crazy, not politically correct thing by today's standards, but it was very interesting, that place in comparison to this one. They're both like Kirkbride plans originally. Same kind of federal push to have, not housing, but like treatment centers for people with disabilities and such. It's very interesting. So that one is almost completely untouched. I think the original Kirkbride building, portions of like the wings of the Kirkbride plan have been removed, but then a lot of the structures, like the campus, it's original and somewhat untouched. There's like posters in there and stuff from like way back when it was still operating and whatnot. So having that with this contrast, it's so interesting that this was actually sold like via private sale to a tech company. I'm surprised they didn't come in here and just kind of like bulldoze the whole thing and then use the land for something else. So I don't know. You don't feel like this used to be like a like center like that. It definitely feels like a corporate campus here. It's cool that there are those original structures. It's definitely kind of like more washed compared to the Sonoma Developmental Center, which I think they're currently trying to bulldoze that one. I don't know if they're trying to like, not retrofit, but like remodel it and reuse the buildings, or if they're just literally trying to bulldoze it, but they are trying to do something with it currently because it's just kind of sitting unoccupied at this time. Nice little contrast between the two, both very interesting, but this is definitely more polished, Silicon Valley money kind of injected into it, and the other one is kind of just sitting idle while that county is figuring out what to do with it. So next we're going to check out the East Campus and see how close we can get. I think a lot of the security there don't really like people, I think it's Cisco is kind of bordering it, they don't really like people getting close and checking it out, so we'll see what we can do. I'm not going to try to break in or anything, but we'll see how close we can get. All right, so damn it, it's locked. That sucks. So this is one of the buildings right here. This is the like side, I don't know what specifically that building was, but you can see there's like a ton of graffiti. The sign says no trespassing. I'm gonna go around to the other side and see if I can enter from the other way. All right, unfortunately this entrance as well too is kind of blocked. There's like a parking lot kind of in this like new middle school that I was thinking to park and then kind of get a better look, but this is kind of the looking like at the facility from the front. There's another entrance kind of like on the side that's a Cisco facility, so we'll see how long it takes before I get stopped and you know, questioned by security, so we'll see. But this would have been one of the main entrances to the East Campus back in the day. Oh my gosh, it is so tagged up. Oh my goodness, wow, that is crazy. All right, so we're gonna see how long it takes before I get questioned by security, but oh wow, look at that. Oh my gosh, you have a great view from here. Okay, perfect. I'm gonna park and we'll take a look. All right, so this is the East Campus. Wow, it is in not good shape. A lot of graffiti, every single window is broken out. As far as I can see, this is actually the main central building. It has a very unique kind of like symmetrical shape and design to it if you look from like an aerial picture. But yeah, very ominous to see this thing, you know, and like all the roads that people would have driven through to drop off patients, pick them up, all the workers and stuff like that, and now it's just completely abandoned and in very rough shape from what we can see here. I think they have a big problem of breaking in and doing that kind of stuff. I think most of the damage is already done. I think, you know, unless it burns down, I don't think it can really get much worse, to be honest. But from what I've heard, I think like a lot of like homeless people that are living in there, so it's not a good idea to trespass even if you don't have like any bad intentions or anything like that. But I think from what I've heard, there's like a ton of like Cisco security that's always kind of running around here trying to like catch people before they go in. But I'm surprised at how close you can kind of get at this point right here, but this is very ominous to see. And the thing that's so crazy about this is we're literally in the hub of like Silicon Valley right here. Like we're literally completely surrounded by like the Cisco campus and all of these different Cisco buildings right here. So it's so strange and ominous that this facility, this empty, you know, mental institution is still kind of here, sitting just as a reminder of previous establishments that we used to have to kind of take care of people with mental illness and whatnot. So I don't know, my goal with this channel is to never get political or whatever, but I feel like the general consensus is like it's sad there's a lot of homeless people in the street, and I feel like a lot of these homeless people, a big problem is mental illness. Everybody, I always hear people say like, oh, they should have places to like, you know, treat and take care of these people. It's like they used to have them. I know a lot of bad stuff happened in there because there was not a lot of accountability and like oversight, you know. There weren't as many processes to kind of protect people that were in these institutions. But I feel like with modern practices or in modern oversight, I guess you could say, new processes, I feel like places like this coming back in some sort of like hybrid modified way could actually do a lot of benefit to society to take care of a lot of these people on the street that clearly have problems and they can't really take care of themselves, you know. So it's, I don't know, definitely a fine line for sure, but we did used to have things like that in place to kind of take care of people and make sure that there were people on the street who couldn't, you know, take care of themselves. And one little fun fact, I know there's probably a ton of wind noise right now and I'm gonna get slammed in the comments, but one kind of like interesting fact about this facility right here is Green Day, Bay Area band, actually shot their music video for Basket Case in this building right here. So that's like one cool kind of like fact of this. And then I think like a horror movie was shot in there. Don't ask me how they were able to like get in there when it was still operational and functioning, but it happened. But it is going to be interesting to see what happens to this kind of site here. There is that like middle school over there that I think was also a component of this campus here, that I don't know if there are buildings there or something like that, but that land has already been used for something. But then this is still very much vacant, and how valuable land is in the Bay Area, I wouldn't be surprised if just give a little bit more time before this is completely demolished and there's some other company in here, or they use it for maybe housing or something. That could always be good. I feel like they're always making like luxury apartments, not like affordable apartments, so we'll see how they use the land. But yeah, I think something is definitely going to come of this, maybe within like 5-10 years or something. I'm surprised nothing's happened like sooner, but you know, there's probably like roadblocks and stuff like that. And the location is kind of weird as well, because it's totally kind of sandwiched within this Cisco campus. So it would almost, I feel like, make sense if this was like, I don't know, Cisco absorbed it or something like that, but I don't know how good Cisco's doing. So anyway, I'm rambling. All right, so that concludes today's video. Yeah, thank you guys for watching. As always, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Like I said, I'm gonna be posting a lot more videos, so keep an eye out for that. But yeah, appreciate you guys. Peace.